Hi everybody, so today I'm going to be going over 10 pros and cons about the housekeeping role for the Disney College program. So the way that I've done this is I've matched each pro with a con that sort of is related in some way so that you guys can really see what the good and bad sides of everything about the housekeeping role are, and hopefully it'll help you decide whether or not this role is appropriate for you. So something that actually made me really want the housekeeping role when I was applying for the Disney College program myself was that it has the best hours of, I think, any role. Pretty much you'll know how many hours you're going to be working every day. It'll be from 8 to 4:30 pretty much at any resort that you're at, unless you get night shifts. There are AM shifts and PM shifts for housekeeping, and the majority of CPs do get AM shifts, but I have heard of CPs getting PM shifts, and sometimes if you get one you can request the other once you get to your program, but I never did that, so I'm not really sure how that works. In a lot of ways, the hours for housekeeping is so much better than the other roles in the Disney College program. I have heard from my merchandise friends that they've had 13-14 hour shifts sometimes, and they'll run really early into the morning, which sometimes means that you will get home, you'll only have a couple hours to sleep, and then you go back into work the next day early. So for housekeeping it was really nice because I always knew every day I was going to be working the same time frame roughly. I'll get into that in a little bit. But for somebody like me with anxiety, it was really good to know that I had time to sleep and had time to go to the parks if I wanted to after work. So housekeeping is probably the best role as far as scheduling goes. The con, however, is that with housekeeping, you can sometimes have to work overtime. That is only if you don't get your rooms done in your 8-hour time frame. It varies from resort to resort, but for me, at my resort, we had 16 rooms to get done every single day. And if we didn't get those 16 rooms done in our 8-hour time frame, we were required to get those rooms done. So even if you are there from 8 to 4:30 and you're making somewhat good progress, if you have 1 or 2 rooms that you haven't done yet, you have to do those. You can't just pass those on to people. So I've heard stories of some other housekeepers being held overtime just to get their rooms done, and that can be very stressful and very tiring because, I mean, 8 hours of this work is already exhausting. So that's something to keep in mind. One of my favorite things about housekeeping is that it's one of the only roles that you can accept tips. And between you and me, there was one checkout room that left 2 $20 bills on the dresser, and it was awesome. However, you have to be extremely careful of what you touch and what you take from guest rooms. So if you see money just lying out, you can never assume that that is a tip. You have to have some kind of proof that that was meant for you. So maybe a note from the guest that says, this is tip money, thank you for your service, and then you can take that. But always make sure that you know that that is tip money. Otherwise you could be accused of stealing, and that's a bad deal. So just be very wary of what you take and even of what you touch, because sometimes guests can get mad if you rearrange their things. Another thing about housekeeping that you don't really see with a lot of other roles is that it's indoors. So you get that air-conditioned room. Somehow in Florida, even if it's 60 or 70 degrees in a hotel room, if you're working, then you're gonna be sweating from head to toe. There's no avoiding the sweat, but you can avoid major heat stroke by being indoors. The kind of sad thing about this though is that you don't get a lot of guest interaction. In fact, I only saw maybe 3 or 4 different groups of guests while I was there. It was just so much fun to interact with those guests, and it made me crave to talk to the guests, and I never knew that I wanted that. So it was kind of hard to always be inside of rooms and cleaning and not be able to interact with guests as much. The tasks for housekeeping are actually pretty straightforward. If you are somebody who does clean often and you like to clean, then learning how to be a housekeeper shouldn't be extremely difficult for you. The con with this is that you have many tasks to do, and even if you really know how to do them well, you don't have a lot of time to do them, and that can cause a lot of stress, and it can really make cleaning rooms difficult. That's something that I experienced. I am a cleaner, I like to clean, but one of my managers actually told me that was a bad thing sometimes in housekeeping because I saw a lot of things that needed to be done and I couldn't get them all done on time. So sometimes you do have to kind of quickly go through things and decide what really needs to be done and what doesn't really need to be done. Now, Disney costumes look pretty much all like they come from the 80s, so they can be really bad, and some of them can actually be really cute. So with housekeeping, a lot of the housekeeping outfits for females are dresses with aprons, and of course this all varies depending on what resort you're at. I had this skirt and a shirt with kind of a weird pattern on it, but it was subdued by the apron that I got to wear, and to me that was the best part of my costume. I thought I looked like a maid from a movie, and it was a lot of fun to put on every day. But there are some housekeepers from different resorts that just have the worst costumes. And I mean, they're really bad. So during the first couple weeks of my program, my trainer took me around to see the different villas and suites in my resort, and that was a lot of fun because I've never seen such fancy hotel rooms in my life. The con to that one is that you realize you can't afford any of these rooms, so that's kind of a bummer. At my resort, there was only one other CP, but there were a couple other girls around my age who had just started full-time. And so all of us bonded really quickly because we were the only new, young, female housekeepers there, and we were able to really bond over our experiences and our frustrations about the role. But we also got to bond over the times that we would help each other out in the rooms. And I'll be totally honest, they helped me out more than I helped them because I was often running behind, and the other girls, like, they were rock stars and they learned their role really well and were getting their rooms done on time. But the greatest thing about making friends in housekeeping is that they will come and help you finish your rooms if they're done. Unfortunately though, there aren't a lot of young people and there aren't a lot of CPs in housekeeping. In my experience, the majority of the people there were older and they spoke different languages. So it was kind of hard in some circumstances because you would go into the lunchroom and see these people in their groups. I mean, I really felt like the odd one out. So if you don't have another CP there, you are likely gonna feel alone because a lot of the other people don't speak English and they're not your age. I mean, this is the truth. Housekeeping is like the most self-termed role in the Disney College program. So, and I can attest to that because I self-termed. So if you're an independent worker, you're probably going to enjoy this role because you're going to be working alone pretty much the entire time, unless you happen to be behind in your work and then other housekeepers have to come and help you out. For me, that was a little bit sad because I like to be around other people when I'm working. I like to be in teams. And although working independently is not the worst thing in the world, then I couldn't depend on other people or ask them questions. After 3 days of training, I was on my own and it was very overwhelming, and I was actually really affected by being alone and not having anybody around me. Again, that could be an anxiety thing, but it's something to consider seriously because you're going to be working in these rooms for 5 months and you may not like to be alone. Something I had to get used to really quickly was that the managers would come in every day to check on my rooms. And not only would they check on my rooms, they would check to make sure I felt confident in what I was doing and asked if I ever had any questions. The con about this is that we had multiple managers, and every day I would pretty much get a different manager to look at my work. And sometimes the manager would be like, oh, you did a really great job, but you were really slow and you need to be faster. And then another manager might come in and say, oh, you forgot to dust the TV or something like that. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll try to remember that next time. And then I would go in next time and I would dust the TV and I would work hard on the room and I would fix what the last manager critiqued, and then I would have another manager come in and be like, oh, you weren't fast enough. So it was like this continuous cycle of frustration for me personally to have multiple managers come in and give me different directions and focus on different things, which I appreciate and I totally understand. They were doing their job, but as a housekeeper, it was hard to interpret what I should and shouldn't be focusing on. My last pro actually has no con because I wanted to end this video in a positive light. I know that a lot of these cons are really scary, especially if you've just accepted the role of housekeeper and you're like, oh my goodness, now what am I gonna do? This role is horrible and I'm gonna hate it. But let me tell you that some people really enjoy this role and they extend or they continue being a housekeeper as a full-time worker. In fact, I met a girl at my resort who had started off in the Disney College program, and she loves the resort and she loves housekeeping. And then even a couple of my managers started out in the Disney College program and now they're managers at that resort. So it's not for everybody. It wasn't for me, but some people really enjoy it. So don't freak out. Don't go into the role with like negative thoughts about the role. If I had been able to go into a room and not gotten overwhelmed by all the stuff that was there, I would have been able to get my rooms done faster and I would have been able to get out on time or even early. And I mean, it's possible, other people have done it. I'm just a clean freak, a perfectionist, and I have extreme anxiety. So all of those things works against me in my case. But I know you've been waiting for number 10, so here's number 10. You get to make Disney a home to these guests. Unlike any other role, you are in the personal realm of each of the guests, and you get to create a welcoming, homey environment for those guests, and you have the ability to create something that's magical and beautiful for them. Believe me, housekeeping is a respectable role. Like I said, it's not for everybody, but I hold on to optimism and I believe that this role can be better than what I experienced. So to all those future housekeepers out there, good luck. And also, if you guys have any more questions about the role or about the program, go ahead and leave those questions down below in the comments. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel to see more videos about the Disney College program and about housekeeping. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!